In 2026, the most sensitive issue that will come before Pope Leo XIV concerns the new Synodal Conference of the German Catholic Church, an organization that, for now, exists only in documents but is already being treated as if it were operational in Germany. The dates for the first meeting have been firmly set: November 6th and 7th, 2026, in Stuttgart. Even the second round is already scheduled for April 2027 in Würzburg, yet one key fact remains unchanged. Without the Holy See's approval, that structure will never see the light of day. The stakes are very high. This synodal conference is not simply a discussion forum, but an attempt to make permanent and institutional what the German synodal path has been pursuing from 2020 to 2023. A process that has produced texts and votes on issues that directly touch on doctrine, sacramental discipline, and the very identity of the episcopate. The 5 assemblies held in those years produced over 100 pages of requests: the possibility of a female diaconate, a review of priestly celibacy, the role of the laity in liturgical preaching, broader participation of the faithful in the appointment of bishops, and a rethinking of the catechism on emotional issues. But the most disruptive decision came in September 2022: the approval of a new body composed of bishops and lay people charged with making fundamental decisions, including financial and pastoral ones. It is from this vote that the project for the current Synodal Conference was born. It was originally intended to be called the Synodal Council, but repeated objections from the Roman Curia forced its promoters to abandon that name, which they considered too similar to a parallel governance structure. The content, however, has not changed. The goal remains the same: to create a national body capable of influencing the Church's decisions in Germany. In the months following the initial internal approvals, Vatican dicasteries intervened several times, reminding the German bishops of the insurmountable limitations imposed by the Church's hierarchical constitution. Meetings were convened, documents exchanged, and positions clarified. In the end, a promise was made from Germany: no action would proceed without Rome's approval. But this is precisely the most controversial issue of 2026. Is Rome willing to grant it? In November 2025, the Provisional Synodal Committee approved the statutes of the future organization. The ZDK, the Central Committee of German Catholics, confirmed them a few days later. Now, the final step on the domestic front is missing: the vote by the German Bishops' Conference, scheduled for the end of February 2026. The outcome depends on a legal detail. Is unanimity among the bishops required, or is a qualified majority sufficient? If unanimity were required, the project would be immediately blocked, as 4 bishops have already declared their opposition. But if 2/3 of the vote is sufficient, as seems likely, then the statute will pass without difficulty. And once it overcomes the German obstacle, it will arrive in Rome for the so-called experimental approval, which could last 3 or 5 years. This is where everything depends. The Pope has so far spoken very little about Germany. His first mention came when criticizing the ritual blessings for irregular couples that have been widespread for years in many German parishes, noting that these practices do not comply with doctrinal guidelines already issued, an indirect but unequivocal criticism. The second occasion was even more significant. At the beginning of a trip abroad, he was asked if he intended to approve the Synodal Conference. The answer was laconic: "We'll see." A brief formula that has given rise to the most diverse interpretations. For some, it's a cautious yes. For others, a diplomatic no. In reality, that response was a way of saying that the question is still open. On the return flight, however, the Pope delved into the matter. He recalled that synodality is a theme for the entire Church, not just a German one. He stated that enculturation can generate different forms of participation, but also that diversity must not turn into division. And above all, he made an observation that carries weight like a judgment. Many German Catholics believe the synodal path does not represent their hopes, nor their way of living their faith. In other words, the project has not truly engaged the people of God. A statement confirmed by the numbers. Nearly 20 million Catholics live in Germany. The synodal path assemblies were composed of 230 people. The provisional committee that drafted the statutes had 74. The future synodal conference will have 81 members, a process that, at each stage, has shrunk rather than expanded. The result is a body that has enormous impact, but represents very little. Furthermore, the current of opposition to the project gradually waned. Some walked out of the assemblies, denouncing a hostile parliamentary climate. Others resigned in protest until virtually no dissenting voice remained in the final committee. Not surprisingly, the statutes were approved unanimously. This is one of the points of greatest concern in Rome. The Holy See fears that the Synodal Conference will become a one-party body led by an organized lay elite, with little regard for the plurality of the faithful. This is why the Pope has indicated a precise criterion: the need for broader listening within Germany so that no one is excluded and so that the most influential groups do not stifle other ecclesial voices. So what does Rome expect to grant approval? Not a reversal of the project, but at least some guarantees: greater representation, clear limits on decision-making powers, and the possibility of involving even critical bishops. Nothing suggests a total refusal, but everything suggests that the Holy See will ask for significant changes. The process could also take longer. No one in Rome seems willing to endorse a model that risks being interpreted as a precedent for other countries. And this is precisely why the German Synodal Conference is destined to become one of the most controversial issues of 2026, because it calls into question the balance between synodality and hierarchical structure, between national autonomy and ecclesial unity. Germany is pushing to proceed. Rome is stalling. The proponents speak of a necessary reform. The Holy See fears a rift. The Pope cautiously hints that something will have to change. And when the decision finally comes, whatever it may be, no one will be able to say that something decisive for the future of the Church was not at stake. What do you think? Will it ever get the green light? Let us know in the comments. If you liked the video, comment Amen. God bless you.